So I want to thank you all for coming here today. And one of the reasons I ran for mayor is because of my commitment to working with residents and businesses to actually produce decisions that are in step with the community. And thank you. This site, as you know, currently serves as a refuse truck terminal for solid waste and recycling vehicles. It also houses our administrative services and vehicle maintenance facilities and neighborhood recycling drop-off locations. And under the previous administration, the city of Albuquerque had proposed developing this site into a full transfer station and convenience center for solid waste trucks to empty loads here. And I'm standing here today to say that that is not going to happen anymore. I do want to share also, though, a thank you to the city staff. I know that the community wasn't a big fan of this project, but I also know that the staff was doing their job to try and find ways to deal with different structural solid waste issues in our city. And so even though I think in many ways we were on opposite sides, they were doing their job, and they actually did a very good job of that. And so I just want to acknowledge that, remember, their role was to come up with the plans and this kind of thing. It was never to do anything with respect to the community. So I'd actually like us all to put a round of applause together for John Soliday and his team, just for working hard and doing what they thought was correct. Yeah, thank you for that. So what are we going to do? I want to say that, firstly, I want to make sure that we listen to communities on the front end of projects. I think that's one important lesson to learn from this. I also know that we've got to continue to work together to actually deal with traffic and pollution issues throughout our city, and also with respect to solid waste collection. So in many ways, while we're solving one problem, we still have a lot of problems yet to be solved. But this time we're going to do it together. So this project, as folks know, is in so many ways a harbinger of a top-down approach of governance. And I think this is what we're going to try and do differently. And we're going to start right back here. So what we do want to do in this location is, one, not have the 6,200 square foot transfer station, but we do want to move forward on some parts of the plan that will enhance the current use of the facilities. But we'll do this getting the neighborhood input first and working with you on those changes. But these are things that in many ways should have little impact. Like, for example, redoing this building here, which is terribly antiquated and out of date. Also has to do with providing a green fueling station in the back. Also with even the fence and the optics and the landscaping. So I think these are things that will be very much in step with the community, but we want to talk about it first. And so we're going to work with you on that. And I think what we're going to make this is actually a piece of pride for the community. That is not only more helpful for city employees and for our solid waste division, but also something that the community will literally drive by and be like, that's a great facility. And we're happy to have it here in our community. So that's the goal going forward. And I'm committed to make sure that we do this as also somehow we want to continue to work reducing our carbon footprint in Albuquerque. And so that does have to do with reducing travel distance and incorporating alternative fuels. So we're going to look at other locations, we're going to look at other ideas, and we're going to do what we can to address that issue, but we're just not going to do it all right here. And I think that fundamentally is the message that we learned over the last 2 years, and that I'm happy to actually bring us here together today to announce. So with that, I'm going to sign a letter to our Chief Operating Officer, Lawrence Real, directing him to take data generated by the planning and the hard work that folks did put into this and find alternative locations that will meet the needs to accomplish these goals and reduce the impact on our environment of solid waste transit. And in the future, when the city is considering projects of this magnitude, we will make sure and listen to input from our communities first. And so let me sign this over, and then we'll open this up for a few other folks as well. So with this letter, we're done. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, and Alicia, did we want to do Q&A a little bit, or what's the plan? Oh yes, David Wood.
Yay!
Come on up.
Good afternoon, Mayor Keller and staff. On behalf of the Greater Garner Neighborhood Association, the North Valley Coalition, Peggy Norton, President, business partners Noble Cisco, Malloy Mobile Storage, Conway Electric, American Marine, Kaufman Fire, and Lone Star, as well as all of the faithful residents of the North Valley and South Valley, many of whom are here today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've given us an early Christmas present, and you've fulfilled a campaign promise all at the same time. Our 4-year struggle is over. Our fight has never been a referendum on waste transfer station. It's about economic impacts to the area. It's about health and environmental justice for this area. It is and always has been whether this proposed transfer station project and zone change would harm adjacent businesses and neighborhoods. We answered that question, and you have confirmed it. We do look forward to working with your administration as you start the search for an appropriate site or sites. After what we've gone through and learned over the last 4 years, we respectfully believe we can provide useful input into siting and other fundamental issues with transfer stations. We have many state and local officials and others to thank, but in particular, I want to thank Councilor Isaac Benton for his legislation requiring an economic impact assessment. This independent study by the well-respected UNM Bureau of Business and Economic Research concluded that this area would suffer economic harm, and it was obviously very helpful to us. Thank you, Ike. I want to also recognize our Bernalillo County Commissioner, Debbie O'Malley.
Debbie, come on up here, Commissioner. Debbie.
She's not supposed to be here, but she is here.
That's right. She's hiding.
Debbie was in our corner from day one. She provided needed funding for a health impact assessment and for a previous economic study. Thank you, Debbie. And we all know that without great legal representation, there would surely be bulldozers on this site today. Our profound thanks and gratitude go to our attorney, Tim Flynn O'Brien. Finally, my personal sincere thanks to everyone who came out today to support our mayor and our community. This is community-based action at its best and with a great outcome. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and take a few questions now.
And I think just before we do a few questions, some short words from our city councilor. He played a long role in this. And then, Commissioner, if you want to share something, and then we'll do a few.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate the mayor's action on this. You know, I'm strongly in favor of making our solid waste entire system much more clean and also responsible fiscally to the city. But in this case, you know, an independent study, as was mentioned, clearly demonstrated harm to economic harm to private commercial and residential interests in the immediate area of the facility. And this is something that I really hope that when, and I trust that as we go forward on different projects, whether it's this or something completely different, that we can have a better rollout with the community on these projects. You know, sometimes there are really good nuggets within them, but if we're not talking to the people who are going to be immediately affected and not recognizing, in this case, clearly demonstrated data that shows they will be, then we're falling down on the job. So this is a good thing to do. We do need to continue to find a way to make a system that uses the data that was collected by and the study that was done by the Solid Waste Department but we'll go forward in a better way this time. Thanks.
I want to add my thanks to the mayor. This is a pretty special day, not only because it's my anniversary, 43 years, but it is pretty cool. David was up here earlier, and we owe a lot to him. There's always a lot of folks who get involved, and you know, he and Peggy, and in particular David, though, he led the effort, and he just didn't quit. And this is for the good of the community. From the very beginning, it was really about fairness. This was an ill-conceived project that was very unfair to this area. So I'm glad it's over. And as was said earlier, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Okay, just a couple of quick questions, and then of course folks will be available after, one at a time.
Do we know how much money has been spent by the city on this proposed project?
I think it was $4 million, and there's also money on for the opposition that was spent too by the neighborhoods. But I actually think David Wood mentioned something really important. We believe a lot of that planning money that was spent, can still be used for a lot of the things like refurbishing this building and so forth. And also a lot of the data that was collected and that we learned is going to help us as we look for other sites. So we actually think that was an investment that is going to continue to provide a return. And so, you know, we're going to keep using that data, and we're going to keep using there were a series of plans in there, and I think some of these plans are going to be great, like landscaping and so forth. Yes, we have. I'll go back to you, ma'am. Go ahead.
So on that note, 2014, the trash fees increased from 13 to 15. Going forward, I guess, you know, where's that money going to go?
So we have needs all across city government and solid waste, and as you know, we have a $40 million budget deficit. So the specific place of where those fees are going to go, a lot of it is going to still go to all the other projects that were part of this. And if there's anything remaining, we'll make sure that they're put to good use. And I think given the budget deficit, you know, that's not going to be hard to do. Yeah. Ma'am in the back, go ahead.
As a resident, long-term resident, I was part of in opposition of the ETS, but I want to be part of the solution to go forward. And with that, you know, since we've had a recycling sort of part of the waste, what are the possibilities of developing the recycle so that it could be part of the economic development, whether you recycle carbonates to do picnic benches or whatever? Is that a possibility?
So the good news is we're going to take you up on your offer to be part of the solution. So, and David's as well. We want to work on that, and you know, there's all these basics about even sorting our trash, and the next steps when it comes to actually having a more green city and so forth. The good news is this solid waste department has been pretty steady actually under John's leadership, and we believe that we're going to be able to move forward on those fronts, but it's going to take a little while because a lot of the efforts and focus were sort of dealing with this. So I think on the one hand, we're liberating resources that can be put to those kinds of questions. But on the other hand, it's going to take a while, especially in a deficit scenario. But I'm excited to see what we can do on that front. And so stay tuned. Dennis.
Mayor, the data that you talked about is generated as a result of all this. Is it recommended or suggested any alternative sites?
I believe in the most recent study, there was no alternative sites because it was just based on the economic impact of this location. But there were earlier studies and alternatives. And of course, you know, there is no perfect site. So I also just want to be realistic. It's not like there's a magical place where everyone wants any kind of solid waste activity. This is a notoriously difficult issue for cities to deal with. But there were alternative locations, so I think we'll start there, but we're going to kind of open it up to a broader reset in terms of where we might put things. And there might be a more decentralized model that provides less impact to an area and still might solve some of our carbon footprint and gasoline cost issues. Yeah, so we've got lots of hands. I'm just kind of going in order, and then we'll do more after.
The $2 in trash fees that was mentioned, will that be returned to citizens or will that be taken away?
So this facility needs a whole lot of work, and so those are going to go to the kind of work that we're going to do here at this facility. and then we'll look at the other needs in solid waste and revisit that. But as I mentioned before, in a $40 million budget deficit environment, those fees will be put to good use for our citizens no matter what. Yeah, and so let me just check. I think we'll do 2 more, and then we'll have to wrap it up, but we can stick around for one-on-ones after. So, yes, sir, in the hat, and then ma'am in the back. Gentleman in the hat.
May I step forward and shake your hand?
Sure. I would be honored.
All right. Tell you, thank you very much for being a man of you. Thank you. Great step from American Murray.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah. So we have and actually John and Lawrence could speak to this better, we have a great start to the composting program. I believe most of it's on the west side. Yeah, all through the landfill. What we want to try and do is figure out a more decentralized way so people can access it on both sides. In somewhat of an irony, we probably could have had that here if we were having a transfer station. So we're going to try and bring those 2 ideas together in a way that also the community wants. So if you're really interested in that, as we talk about the changes that we will be able to make, that's a good thing to bring up. Maybe we can still work that in right here. All right, so I think with that, thank you very much all for coming. Merry Christmas. Thank you. Thanks.